So what's really important isn't to arrive and, finish the mini transat. Is to welcome your friends doing the mini transat.
Vincent ?
Oui.
Quand on m'a parlé du mini, on m'a dit que c'était la seule course où il y avait plus de monde pour l'arrivée du dernier que pour l'arrivée du premier. Est-ce que c'est vrai ?
Ça, je le confirme, effectivement. Aujourd'hui, tous les skippers sont là.
La preuve, voilà.
Voilà, tout le monde est là.
Professionnel, t'as réussi à garder ta bière.
A few moments later.
Voilà, petit road trip. On va faire quoi, Antoine?
On va remonter les berres. Si on y arrive, il y a des barricades partout, c'est la guerre.
C'est ça. Bon, gros soulèvement social en Guadeloupe à propos du prix de l'essence, des vaccins et peut-être d'autres choses qu'on n'a pas compris. Bon voilà, barricade mais bien vendu. Petit moonwalk.
C'est par là-bas.
Bon, au pire côté on marche arrière. Bon bah du coup chou blanc. Il y a des barrages partout, donc on va faire routage sud.
Option sud.
Option sud.
On passe par la mer. On passe par la mer et on attaque, on débarque par les côtes.
C'est ça.
Captain Hugo.
Changement d'ambiance.
On récupère nos gilets jaunes.
Et on va monter les berres.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon. Try to catch me howling at the moon. Try to catch me howling at the moon. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
Allez, bon vent, hein. Fais gaffe, il y a une bouée quand même. That's it, everything is packed away. All the sails, that's the bowsprit, the boom is is on the other side. Pretty much everything I could remove from the deck is now inside. Solar panels as well are there. Let's go.
Alright, the boat is all ready to be hauled out tomorrow. It's actually Vincent, the owner, who's going to haul it onto the cargo, because I'm going with Romain with a ferry to Martinique for some new adventures, and you'll see more about this in the next episode. Bye. T'as dit quoi?
Cheers.
Right, with all these mini transat episodes, I've been receiving lots of questions in the comment on my Instagram page, on Facebook, so I've tried to kind of gather them all and answer them here. So let's go. Why don't you sail the boat back to France? So the Mini 650 is only allowed to cross the Atlantic because we are onto a race. Otherwise it wouldn't be insured to cross the Atlantic. So crossing back from Guadeloupe or from the Caribbean to France is first, you know, a much harder sail than the way from Europe to the Caribbean, because you get much more north to get the north part of the weather pattern, and it's much rougher. I wouldn't be insured doing so, and honestly it wouldn't be a pleasant ride at all, because it involved potentially lots of headwinds into big sea conditions. Better to put the boat on a cargo that it arrives safely back to France, and you'll see in the coming episodes that I found a cool ride back. So yeah. Second question is, I assume that by 1/3 of the leg you had a hunch that the winds are more south and the rum line approach wasn't gonna pay off. Do you think anything could have been gained by switching tactics and sailing southwest for one day? Yes, there could have been a gain with that. That's what I tried to do somehow, trying to make the most out of the wind variations. But also, if by 1/3, I think on day 7 or something like this, that when I was second, and you know, like kind of in the 2-3 days after, that's where I figured out that my option wasn't going to pay off. But there was still, you know, maybe a chance that something developed for like several days. We've seen like kind of a high pressure reforming kind of northeast of the Caribbean, and in that case it would have been really good for me. You know, if you want to have a look at someone who did that, it was Hugo Dallène who won the Mini Transat. His track is just really impressive. He was first north with me, then went just a little bit south, and then really south. His track is really impressive. He's an amazing sailor. So yeah, going south for a day, that's what I did at some point for like 12 hours or so. You know, I tried to head a bit more south. But the idea is that when you're into an option, it's often more costly to change option than to carry on onto your option and hope for that something comes up. Didn't pay off in my case. I would be very interested in how you work your strategy in positioning yourself before and after the squall hits. That's a tough question, because in squall management there is the theory and the practice. Theory says that, you know, if the wind comes towards you, the squall doesn't go with the wind, it goes at a slight angle. That's the theory, because sometimes you see a squall that goes, you know, not the other direction, but at the other angle. But taking this into account, if you have a squall straight behind you, you can assume that it's going to pass next to you. If you have a squall that is slightly to windward behind you, of course I'm talking if you're going downwind, this squall is going to probably hit you. My approach is that If it's a small squall, I try to, use as much of its push as it's coming onto me, and then I jibe to avoid being behind the squall, because it's where there is no wind. So you try to kind of ride the squall, and when you feel that the squall is above you, you just jibe and kind of try to get away from it. If it's a really big squall and looks really nasty, I try to just avoid it, because, dropping a sail, changing to a smaller sail, taking reefs to stay into the squall, maybe breaking something is not worth it. So if it's a small squall, I try to ride it. If it's a big squall, I try to avoid it. When to jibe, where to jibe, there is no, like people say there is a strict rule. I don't really believe them, because there is as many situations as there is squalls, and it's hard to make a rule out of it. Do you have time and space to do some gym during such a passage, and is it really necessary? Time, probably yes. Space, kind of. Is it really necessary? Not really. The Mini, at least, is a pretty light boat. You don't need lots of power, lots of strength to maneuver it. So, gym, probably not. What I tried to do almost every day was a little bit of stretching, because on a boat you're always sitting, having strange position, being like in a just bad position for your back and your neck. So every day I was trying to stretch, put my arms onto the roof, pull my back, and try to keep this flexibility that is for me much more important, especially on the Mini, but on any boat. Do you have some favorite freeze-dried meals to recommend? Not really. I've tried many different brands. Some are a little bit better than others, but what's most important for me is the variety. If you have, the best meals, but kind of always the same time, the same thing, you're gonna get bored of it, and it won't taste as good after a few weeks. So probably the best advice I could give is just take many different brands, many different type of meals, and just this change is what's gonna make you appreciate this more. I wonder, how do you single hand steering 24 hours with wind vane, autopilot, or something? Yes, autopilot. There is an autopilot below deck that is used as a wind vane, because there is a wind vane at the top of the mast, an electronic wind vane that tells the autopilot the wind angle, and so I can set my autopilot to the wind angle or to compass mode. I have made a video already about this. I'll put the link somewhere here, so you can go check this out. But this question is also related to the autopilot on a race. Is that not crucial to steer? Yes and no. It depends when. The autopilot is really good at steering into light wind and kind of strange conditions where, the human, or at least me, can get frustrated and can get annoyed of, having no wind, having like strange condition. The autopilot sometimes is really good, and what I normally do is I steer for a bit, see my average speed, see the course I'm doing and everything. And if I find it hard, I try to put on autopilot, and sometimes you realize that the autopilot just does it better than you, because the autopilot never gets tired, the autopilot never gets bored. So sometimes it's better to be on autopilot than steering yourself. And all the thing in the racing is to find that moment where it's better to be on autopilot and go and rest, or go and do something else. I'd like to see better how the weather forecast is received and plot on that white chart. So many of you have been asking me a question about this. So there is two kind of documents that I'm using mostly for the weather forecast. First, there is the radio coming onto the BLU receiver. I record it. I had a small dictaphone thing to make sure, even if I miss something, I had to go out and do a maneuver, that I had all the weather. And then I put this weather into this sheet. I don't know if you can tell. So yeah, this. Basically, it's the zone, the day, the time, the wind direction, wind speed, sea pressure, and remarks. This was what was coming every day onto the radio forecast. I knew that, you know, they would say like in zone, ta-da-da, there is on this date at this time, there will be this much wind with this, and that's the order. This is for the mini transat, but you know, in your local area or wherever you're sailing, every day they're gonna give the weather forecast on VHF or whatever else, and it's gonna be always the same. So you need to know this order to be able to make this type of format, and so you know what information you're waiting for. Really often you'll see that over radio the communication is not necessarily good, the voice can be changed, and you know, you need to know the order and what kind of information to expect, and it's easier to put it down in a table like this. Once you have this table, you fill it, and I have my zones here. The Atlantic is just divided in many different boxes, so I know that I'm in this position, so I'm in the Duguay area, so I know that when the broadcast talk about Duguay area, I can take this. And this also allows me to, you know, just take the areas I'm interested into. I don't need to take the weather in Trinidad if I'm still in Canary Islands. These are for the two tools. So basically I fill these based on what the weather forecast is saying, and then I mark this onto my chart. There will be two kind of information into this weather forecast. The first one will be general conditions, so they were going to say the high pressure is you know, in 30 west and 10 and 32 north, so I know that my high pressure is going to be here. They're going to say there is a ridge extended to southwest towards maybe Guadeloupe or towards something, so I'll know where my ridge is. Then they'll talk, if there is one, about a talweg going somewhere or about a tropical wave passing somewhere. All this is the general information. They give this over 4 or 5 days, and I know what the general situation is, and I can analyze its evolution every day, you know, because I had this one, I just printed it, but I had this on plastic, so I could write on it and I could see the evolution from one day to another. Then the second part of the weather forecast is filling this, and this is every zone, so I know the weather for like 2 days and a half onto each of these little squares. So I know that, you know, if I'm here and there is more wind here and less here, I know if I have to kind of try to go south or not, etc. So that's it a bit for the weather forecast. I hope that this helped. This is really specific to the mini transat, but you can do exactly the same in your area for your local weather forecast. This is into the almanac normally. You'll have, you know, the chart of your area with the different weather zones, and then you just, you know, need to listen to it a few times to know which information. In general, it's coming always in the same order, so you can have like a pre-prepared template where to just fill in the information, and it makes your life much easier. Hope that helped. What does it mean, a race without assistance? What electronic devices do you have on board to communicate and locate yourself? So, race without assistance means that we cannot have outside assistance that is specific to our boat, and no communication means that we cannot communicate. The only devices we have on board is a VHF. So a VHF, as you know, is a range of 10 miles, kind of top. So we are allowed to chit-chat with the competitors around. As of communication, we don't have a satellite phone, so we cannot call or receive any information on the boat. We do receive every day the weather forecast through BLU, but that's the same for every competitors. And to locate ourselves, we only have a positioning GPS. So it's a GPS that gives us the latitude and the longitude. That's it. No chart plotter, no nothing. So we have to, you know, we just carry on all the charts that we need for the passage. So that's it. Race without assistance means no communication, no satellite, pretty much like really basics. Today for some people it feels really crazy to do this, but that's actually perfectly safe. I feel impressed at people when they were crossing the Atlantic having like really basic charts and just a sextant. This was badass. crossing the Atlantic with just a GPS that gives you your position and the VHF, and also we had like safety equipment that we can use if we need them, like an Ep182 with this thing that you activate and it sends for like 48 hours or 72 hours an emergency signals through GPS and through satellite, so someone can eventually come and reach out to you. You have this as a safety. You don't use it on a daily basis, but as a safety, if your boat catches on fire and you're into your life raft, you have this Ep182, and that changes kind of the game. So yeah, that's it. No assistance, no communication. You lease your boat for €3,000 a month, which represents 72k for 2 years, not far from the price of a new Maxi. Also, during your Sailing Club podcast, I'm putting the link of this podcast up there, you said never buy a boat. So do you think leasing is the best or cheapest option compared to reselling a boat? Good question. So no, leasing the boat isn't the cheapest option at all. If you're going onto a mini transat project and you have this, option of buying or renting the boat, definitely go for buying, because you buy it, you sail it, and then you can resell it after. Especially now, the mini market is just booming, so you can actually sell your boat for more expensive than what you bought it for, which for boats never happen. Anyway, when I started my mini transat project, I did not have the capital to buy the boat. I had to go through leasing, because for me it was the only option to get a boat, start racing, do my qualification races, do my qualification loop, be there, take pictures, and look for sponsors. I did not have 80, 100k to put into a boat. I had to go through leasing because I had 25,000 euros onto my saving account that I could use to start renting the boat and start showing progress, etc., to find a sponsor. Luckily, I found SVB to help me carry on with that project that I had started. Without them, I could not have arrived to the start of the mini transat. I've been lucky to have, you helping me as well through a crowdfunding to give me these few extra months until SVB actually found me to finance my campaign. The leasing is not the cheapest option, but for me it was the only option to be able to do this race. Question about finance. I would be interested to know how all this work with finance. Do you get paid, or only if you are one of the first to arrive or win, or how do you finance your life? If you're looking to make money, don't go into sailboat racing, really. No, so when you win a race, you just win the glory. If you're lucky, you get a bottle of rum or champagne at the end, but there is no prize money or such thing. On bigger class of boat there is, but even then they're ridiculous. They barely cover the inscription fees. It's really different than many other sports. Offshore racing still remains a sport for, the glory and the honor of reaching out the other side. And the way to finance yourself, the ideal scenario where you can live from offshore sailing is that you find a sponsor that pays you and that pays your boat. So basically you have a budget for the boat, the maintenance of the boat, maybe a technical team to help you, and you have a budget for you, kind of a salary to keep racing and to keep training and all that, so you don't have to work aside. In the class mini it's a bit different, because the exposure you get, a sponsor gets from the race isn't so big that you can put so much money to pay your boat plus you. In my case, SVB helped me to cover the expenses of the boat, of the race, etc., etc. But I still had to work for my living, so I was doing deliveries, I was doing technical work, I was doing different jobs to keep me afloat financially and just break even. And these 2 years of mini transat, I did manage to break even, except the 20 grand I put at the beginning from my own pocket. But c'est la vie. It was a great adventure. So yeah, basically that's a bit how things work. As you evolve into bigger class of boat, you can negotiate something a bit different, but for the mini transat it's kind of the situation. So if I understood well, you want to change class. Can you tell us more about it, or is it too early? I really don't know. I would like to sail on bigger boats, but I don't really want to start looking for money again. You know, bigger boats means bigger problems, mean bigger money, and I already struggle finding like 80k for the mini transat project, finding $500,000 or $1 million to get a class 40 or to get an IMOCA. I really want to do this at some point, but right now it's not the moment. I'm exploring options at the moment, and as soon as I find what's next, I'll let you know. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, it means that I maybe have answered your question. Don't hesitate to subscribe and give a hit to the like button so I can carry on doing these videos. Thanks a lot. Have a good day and fair winds.